Hi, this is Melanie of Pardesi Reviews, and I'm joined with Katherine of the podcast Polandine Patti, and we're going to talk about Mammootty's latest film with Jeo Baby, Kaathal the Core. So I'm so glad that Katherine reached out to me. I was eagerly awaiting this film to come on streaming, which it is playing on Amazon Prime Video in the United States. It just came out a few days ago, and you had a chance to see this in the theater, though, right?
I did, and as you know, the rollout for the release was much more limited than for many films.
Yeah.
I don't think the film went into the US at all.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I would have been able to see it. Yeah.
Yeah. If it did in very limited markets, I think it may have gone into Australia, but sort of after the word of mouth got rolling.
Yeah.
Which sometimes happens with Malayalam language films.
Right.
But yeah, I was so grateful that I got to see it in the theater because I wasn't sure I would see it on streaming because so many Malayalam language films in the last year are on Prime in India, don't come to Prime in Canada. So, and it was like all day Friday. I was waiting for it to refresh, and I thought, oh God, no, it's not coming. Oh my God, no. Because I so much wanted to see it again.
And you said the audience in your theater actually applauded at the end. It would have been amazing to see it with a crowd. And
I went literally first day first show for me, which was a Thursday evening, the first Thursday screening that it opened, and I had to drive over an hour to see it. It was not filled, but for a Thursday evening for a film of this kind, it was actually there was a fairly decent audience.
Right.
Mostly younger people, looked like in their 20s and 30s.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So not like long-time core Mammootty fans. Okay.
Not at that screening. Okay. So I don't know what would have happened on weekend screenings.
Right.
But definitely, yeah. I mean, we've all been to, sort of the big massy films where you got the hero entrance and everyone cheers and claps, like that kind of stuff I've seen before.
Right.
But this was like being at a film festival where at the end of the film, people appreciate it and clap. I was sitting there bawling. I actually forgot to bring out Kleenexes. So if I start bawling here, I'm going to be a mess.
Right. I'm just going to say up front that we're really going to dive into this film.
Yeah.
So if you haven't seen the film, like we said, it's available on streaming. We're going to get heavily into spoilers. So please do watch the film. If you don't, you may have already heard about the film. If you don't care about spoilers, I mean, we're just going to continue on. But I'm just telling you, we're not going to hold back because there's so much to discuss about this film. We should talk about the team behind it. Jeo Baby, the director, basically reassembled his team from The Great Indian Kitchen, which was an incredible film that just really hit a nerve. It just was incredible, just like it was a sensation. And I see a lot of echoes in the quiet subtlety and then kind of an explosion of emotion, but not several explosions of emotion, but just like you're waiting, the tension is killing you, waiting for a scene to happen like that. And we get that with Mammootty and his father in this film. So again, Salu K was a cinematographer. I've rewatched, being able to do it on streaming, you can rewind, and I rewatch certain scenes. Specifically, there's a lot of tracking shots that then back up to let you know there's someone else who is in the room, or there's someone else who is overhearing this conversation. Yeah. Particularly that big emotional moment between Mammootty and his father, played by Adarsh Panakar. The tracking backs up, and then you see that Jyothika, who plays Omana, his wife, is hearing it, and then you see this flash, like she passes, in front of the camera, essentially in a blur that, and it kind of breaks the moment. But anyway,
there's a scene even later when she has left the house and Matthew is serving a meal along with his daughter and his father. And then he looks at the kitchen and the camera just pans into the kitchen. I was like,
Right, right. The empty space where she
yeah,
always was. Right, and the camera, follows his thoughts into the kitchen.
yeah. And all
So
the
yeah,
framing, the way certain things are framed, just like the whole technical stuff, the score is sublime.
yeah.
The second time I watched the film, I started crying with the violin score at the opening credits. Nothing has happened yet. I was crying.
Yeah. So you pointed out what the meaning of the title is, because you pointed out, rewatching the beginning, you see that the title Kaathal is shown on a wood grain pattern in the opening credits, after we see all the crew and the cast and everything named. And I just completely, that didn't hit me. Well, I didn't even know. That's the thing when you watch some of these movies.
Yeah.
The title doesn't mean anything. All I know is Geo Baby, Mammootty, done. Right? Like, I didn't even need to know what the movie was about to want to see it. But
Yeah, absolutely. But if, like, for me, those I get like obsessive about the details. And when some of the discussions around the title started happening, I was madly taking notes and thinking about it. And it was only because, as I mentioned to you, Kaathal means literally the core of wood, or the
right,
core of the core wood of a tree.
the heartwood
And I
is
was like, wrote
in
that down.
phrase, yeah, which is even more shades of meaning. The heartwood, right? Like, yeah,
And as I said to you on Twitter, we were having a little bit of a conversation. Like, I didn't even, I was thinking, okay, what, that's got to be a name for that in English. And then I realized, oh God, it's heartwood. Because your trees have sapwood and heartwood, and sapwood is the outer living portion of the tree. And we all know that, when trees grow, you have growth rings.
right,
But what happens is, as the sapwood moves to the inner part of the tree, it dies off and becomes heartwood. And you think, well, that's dead. It's dead material. It can't be doing anything, but it's actually giving the tree a lot of strength against anything like winds or anything that it might come up against. So, like, the minute you start looking at that, like, the
yeah.
layers of everything that Geo Baby and his writers are putting in this just like starts from that title credit.
And
Just
this, yeah, I
phenomenal.
mean, so this film was not written by our director Geo Baby, though. Adarsh Sukumaran and Paulson Skaria approached him with this script, and he wanted to do the project, and he approached Mammootty, and then it was Mammootty who suggested Jyothika, who I guess had not done a Malayalam film for like a dozen years, and I
Yeah.
think it's been maybe 3 years since she had done, another language film. So I
And
just, I just loved the two of them together. These two very strong actors, and so in charge of their craft. And the words I would use to describe the film, I mean, I've seen dignified over and over and over again.
yep,
I would say restrained, because
yep.
there's and repressed. There's so much you can just feel, because of someone of Mammootty's caliber, when he's not saying something in a scene, you can tell, the gears are whirring, or he's fighting with him. Even though he just has sort of this calm demeanor, you can still tell it's like all of this has been shoved, all of this emotion has been shoved so deep. And you can see that there is this sort of love between the husband and wife. They do care about each other. But yet I just noted all their conversations, they weren't even facing each other.
Yep.
He couldn't even look at her to be like, why are you divorcing me?
Yeah, and there are so many scenes where they're talking and their backs to each other, or they're looking
Yeah,
in different directions.
right.
And yeah, it was just, I do want to mention though that Jyothika was dubbed by Jomo. A lot of
Okay,
people
that's
are a
what I
little,
was wondering. I was like, I don't think that's Jyothika's voice.
no.
I sort of saw some scenes where I'm like, I don't think the lips are exactly matching, and I was guessing she was probably dubbed.
There are some people who have complained about the dubbing. It worked for me, but
It
I
was,
admit I adore Jomo. And I think this was Mammootty's choice as well. I think I read that she said, well, she at least thanked him for giving her this. It's the first time she's dubbed for anyone.
Oh, wow.
If you remember, we talked about her when Harsh and I came on to talk about Kanchaka Boban and Shalini, and like adore her, just
Yeah.
adore her. Like, somebody please bring her back now to the movies if she wants to come.
Yeah, but I do think it was such a fine performance by Jyothika. But of course, the main man of the show is Mammootty. And I tell you, for a long time I said, okay, Mahonlal is my guy, but oh my gosh, Mammootty, what he has been doing at the later part of his career, I can't even. Katherine, I can't even. The man is taking risks. He's in his 70s. He's just saying he is doing amazing work.
Yeah.
And like just within this one calendar year, like, the film with Legion Joe's Pelissari to this, right? Bookend. Like, just amazing. Amazing.
I'm actually scrolling through some notes that I got on here that I got, like Mammootty versus Mohanlal, Risk Taker versus Comfort Zone, both of which are equally reasonable positions for senior actors to be in.
If anybody can take a victory lap and rest on his past greatness, it's Mohanlal. Like, I'm not saying you are required to do that in your later years. I'm just saying my admiration for Mammootty grows and grows and grows, because also it was his production company that helped get this film made. Let's talk about Paranba again. His production company, his urging that there be a trans actress that was involved with the project. So this is what I say, using your stardom for good, right? Like he's using his power within the industry to make these incredible films. And it's because it's Mammootty, this film is reaching an audience that it might not otherwise reach.
And Mohanlal can still bring in an audience. Like we've seen this recently with Nera, which has just exploded. Like because you had the big matchup between Salar and Dunki just before Christmas.
Yeah,
Nera opened on the same day.
Right, and it wasn't. So then, therefore, it wasn't playing near me. It was very disappointing. But yeah, I mean, it just.
But in Kerala, what happened was they were canceling Salar shows and putting on extra Nera shows because there is Mohanlal working in his comfort zone, and when it clicks, the audience comes out for it. So,
I meant more because of the topic of this movie.
Yeah. No, but I'm saying
an audience would come and see it that might not otherwise, because it has the stamp of Mammootty on it.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that we're not putting Mohanlal down for
I never want to put Mohanlal down. I still love him, and I still I'm be anxiously awaiting to see Nero when it comes on streaming and is up. I'm there for him, but I just want to say that in the past, I'm like, yeah, Mammootty's he's good too. But now I'm like, oh my God, he just.
Yeah. But I also want to kind of put this in some perspective of Mammootty's career, because a lot of this stuff comes post-pandemic. And there have been some people thinking, like, did the pandemic give him some time to reflect? And particularly, did the pandemic give him time to reflect on what happened with the film Kasaba in 2016? Because I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't. So tell me about that one.
It's, for me, I'm sorry, I do not like this film.
Okay.
And I'm going to be very negative. But at the time, a whole polemic blew up around the film because it's very misogynistic, very macho. It was kind of an attempt to combine Mammootty's swaggery comic image with his macho hero image. But like every male character in particular is very lascivious, and like you can practically see them licking their lips when they look at women, and the camera pans are terrible. And the polemic started when Parvati in particular got up at a forum at a festival where they were talking about these kinds of things, misogyny in film. And she didn't name Mammootty, but the gist of what she said was she was disappointed in the film because her words, a great actor mouthing misogynistic dialogues. And the Mammootty fans descended on her. And it was a little bit disappointing too, because Mammootty said nothing. He didn't wade in, and his comment later, a little bit later, was, I just don't comment on these things. Little disappointing. So I can't help wondering if, like, some of those people that, that, and the response to that, because he later worked with Parvati. So, and everyone was like, oh, they've patched up. I don't think they ever fell out. Anyway, but, so you have that in 2016, and that markedly distasteful, to my mind, film. But then you have this post-Kasaba and post-pandemic stuff starting up. And Mammootty founds Mammootty Kampany in 2021. He had another production company, but this is the one he's working with now, 2021. You had the film Rorschach with Nissim Bashir, whose first film was starring Asif Ali, was about a non-consensual marital rape, essentially. So working with someone who's known for dealing with an issue. You have Nanpakal, the Lijos Pelasheri film as a standout. Like, there's Mammootty, the actor, being given something to put his teeth into. Connor Squad from last year, which was very successful, which again didn't work for some people, but again, it was a little bit this investigative thriller that they tried to meld a little bit with the massy side of Mammootty. So a little bit of experimenting for me there. And upcoming, he's got Turbo, which is a return to mass hero film. It's a film directed by Vaisak, who did Pokari Raja, which is a very massy film. So it's not that he's turning away from that with all of these. They're still there, but it's like the filmography is being weighted more in the direction of performances and meaningful discussions around issues. And you mentioned Perunba in 2019. It was his return to Tamil cinema.
Yeah.
After a lot of years. And it's absolutely stunning in that it's about a single father of a teenage daughter with cerebral palsy. And he has to cope with things like she's having her first period. Yeah. She's having, a sexual awakening, as is common with teenagers. And he doesn't know how to handle any of it.
Right.
And just that, again, an actor of this caliber takes on this role.
My mind was just absolutely blown watching that film.
And as you said, we've got a transgender actress playing a transgender woman in the film,
right? And that Mammootty specifically said this person should be involved in the film.
Yeah. So it's again, I've said it before. I don't know what brought about this. Sometimes, though, I don't know about you, but I know that particularly in the last couple of years, as I get older, I suddenly have this sense of urgency that I got to do stuff because there's not enough time left to do things.
Well, there's that kind of feeling. And there's also when you reach a certain age, you're just like, I don't care. Like, whatever. Right. Like, I definitely, a woman in my 50s starting a YouTube channel. Like, but seriously, you just kind of, you reach a point where you don't care what other people are going to say. And those negative comments, you have enough self-confidence in yourself, and you're just like, I know who I am, and I'm not going to listen to them. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And there may be some of that. I mean, who can argue with a man of his stature and his career, his body of work, right? Like, I mean, just so he's not going to ruin it all by playing this one role. I mean, to me, it only enhances my admiration for him. So anyway, it does seem strange to talk about how admirable it is for someone to play a gay role, because in Hollywood, we were having a little text discussion before, and I was just like, okay, some in the queer community were critical of this film in that Mammootty's character Matthew is forced to come out because of the divorce going to trial. And I was thinking about, I mean, this is decades ago in Hollywood. There was a film, In and Out, Kevin Kline
Yep.
starring, about something like that, which happened in real life, which Tom Hanks played a gay character in Philadelphia, won an Oscar, and thanked his high school drama teacher and outed him on national television.
Yeah.
And so that is that, but it was a comedic film. Film is not comedic. This is with dignity, with reserved. It's all about these repressed emotions and the pain that everyone has had
Yep.
from decades of living in the closet and being married to someone that's living in the closet. I mean, how about that stunning courtroom scene where Matthew's advocate is cross-examining Jyothika's character, and she's like, "Well, how much did you have sex?" And she said 4. And she's like, 4 times a month is completely normal. Yeah. It's like, no, in the entire marriage. What was it, 18 or 20 years of marriage? And even the advocate was like, yeah, I'll just sit down now.
Well, and I think some of the nuance in around that, that whole idea of coming out, is down to things in the legal system and pertaining to how divorce works in India, that Omana doesn't really have a lot of choices here. Because if she wants to get divorced, it either has to be, and I think this is very new in the Indian penal or Indian divorce law, it has to be by mutual consent. And there are still, things that go on. But the minute she tells us she's tried to talk to Matthew about this and he doesn't want to divorce. So that right there limits what she can actually do. And they mention a case in the court proceedings, Daniel Krastow versus the state of Maharashtra. That's an actual court case from the Indian court system, legal system. And the woman asking for a divorce cited mental cruelty because her husband was a gay man in an consensual extramarital relationship. That wasn't enough to... Like, they had to prove the mental cruelty. I'm not a lawyer, so if anyone has more insight on it, I'd love to hear about it. But the point in that case, too, was the husband was also charged under Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code. That also comes out as a mention in this film.
Right, and because they say, why didn't you do it before? And she said, because I didn't want him to be... because before it was legal, then he could have had legal ramifications from that. So,
and I think,
the point is made. She doesn't hate him. She doesn't wish him ill. Yeah. She just wants out. She wants to live her life.
And her options are very limited. If she did speak to her father, if her father had taken her side, he could have come talk to Matthew's father and they could have arranged the divorce amongst the families. Her father wouldn't listen to her.
Right.
It came down to the timing. She didn't want him to be branded a criminal. Right. And let's think about that. Like, the Section 377 has been sort of batted back and forth for about 10 years, starting in 2009, I think. And then 2018,
yes,
it was overturned again. And I'm sure it will be that overturning will be challenged again. And I think that's a context you need to have Absolutely. For films like this, because Matthew would have been criminally charged if she had.
And they make the point that she had filed for divorce. She didn't time it to embarrass him for the election. I also love, like, in the same way he was reluctant to get married, he was so reserved and reluctant to do anything. It wasn't that he actively sought to run for this election. That he sort of was like, really? I have to? Okay. I mean, so others were urging him to do it and pushing him to do it. And he tried to get out of it multiple times. And
then when he agrees to
it, the timing was kind of coincidental. She didn't file for divorce as a retaliation to embarrass him because she had filed it before. It just happened to, okay, this is when it comes up.
Yep. And even when he agrees to do it, they're constantly having to say, Matthew, you have to be a little more proactive here.
Yeah, you have to be a little enthusiastic. We have to visit more houses and convince more people.
Yeah. Oh, just, and even, the setup about how the opening where they're taking him to talk to the father whose daughter wants to marry the worker that they've hired.
Right. Yeah.
And the party worker is explaining to him that if he can resolve this, then they'll get the family's votes.
Right.
And I love the fact that what he does is he steps in, he wants to listen to the girl's side of the story. And he says, they're in love. What are you going to do? You could file a police complaint. They'll agree with her. And eventually she does marry it. And we find that out later in the film that that's how it got resolved anyway. So there's this little part of Matthew that's already saying, if they love each other and they understand what they're getting into, what are we interfering with here?
I love that parallel because he literally had been in those shoes, right? My father knows I love someone else and is forcing me to marry Jyothika's Omana character.
And so had Omana.
Exactly. And she also had been in love with someone else, and their families forced them to get married. So he had lived that. And so he's just listening to this father saying, she's the only one that I have. And he's like, and like, like you're not going to lose her by allowing her to marry who she loves.
And in fact, you already consider him like a son. So what is it? Two more it doesn't say rotis, but he's two more something on the table.
Right.
It's like, oh,
I know. Yeah. I loved the drawing of the parallel there. I mean, we should mention that we're talking about how this movie may make a cultural shift in Kerala, but it's not the first film in Malayalam cinema to deal with homosexual relationships. And
I got a list, Mel.
Okay, right. I mean, and especially not one. Okay, maybe not of Mammootty stature, but Niven Pauly, anyone? 2019, Motan. With Roshan Mathews. I mean, that was a beautiful, impactful film, but. But yet this one is the moment, right? And maybe it's just the audience being ready to hear it. I don't know. But this one definitely seems to be making more of an impact. You've been seeing some of that on the Reddit forum you were telling me about.
Yeah, and as I mentioned to you, there are people who don't like the film. They find it too slow.
I see your point. Yeah, fair point.
If that's not how you want to consume a film, if you want to go watch action and hero, and this is not your thing, fine. Yeah, it's not going to be your thing. But I've seen less of this on Reddit and more elsewhere on the internet, a little bit on Reddit, where there has been kind of as there is in political discourse everywhere, there's, people throw out the usual catchphrases for leftist and rightist and woke politics and this and that. Well, fine. If that's the lens you're going to see life through, then nothing is going to change how you feel about anything. There was a kind of as I understand it, a concerted campaign to kind of harass Mammootty through his social media.
It's horrible. That's horrible.
But I think I'm going to expect they expected that, and they just because the film was also banned in the Gulf states, banned in Indonesia, largely Muslim, states. So
right. I mean, but now it's available on streaming, so hopefully it can still reach some of these audiences, even if it's on pirate sites or however people who need to see the film can see the film.
Yeah. And I think what it does, I think it and Mutan especially differentiate, because it was the same thing in Western media as well, and lots of other places in the world, where a lot of times over the years, queer characters have been used for comic relief, or they've been the villains.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that of a negative shade in Mumbai Police, which, is not as bad as others. But even as recently as last year, no, 2022, again with Vaisak. So again, he's a very messy filmmaker. The film Monster with Mohanlal has two lesbian characters in it, and they're the criminal masterminds. And the camera view when we discover they're lesbians is again very lascivious. It's very unpleasant.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of where these things sit a lot.
Right.
You do have a film in '86 by Padmarajan that is much more sensitive. It's not very readily available. So those, much more sensitive portrayals have existed. But I do think Mutan and Kaathal stand out for me in how very respectful they are towards their characters.
And also really expressing that longing, that the pain, not only in their own life, but people around them, from them having to live this other life,
Yeah.
So
And one of the
I just love how, Geo Baby, Great Indian Kitchen, like this director is just like, give me the issue movie, give me that red hot poker that no one wants to touch, and I'm going to make a movie that's just going to push the envelope and make people talk. And I love that. Okay, I just really admire him for choosing these kinds of projects. Great Indian Kitchen absolutely blew my mind. Like, the fact that you have this male director, like, okay, I'm gonna do this feminist movie, and I'm gonna show the pain that these women go through, and having to be isolated in rooms during their menstruation. We're gonna go there. We're gonna talk about all of these issues. And this movie not only deals with the pain of Mammootty's Matthew character and having lived this life, he's really also dealing with the pain of the women in this situation, because they make the point in the trial, that 80% of gay people are probably in a heterosexual marriage, right? And so it's not just their own pain, but the pain of their spouses that are having to live in this situation. And this film deals with that head on.
And I saw a comment on Reddit from a woman who said, "This was my first marriage." She got out earlier than Omana did. So there are people out there saying, yes, this was my reality.
Right.
It exists.
The same thing exists. I'm not saying that the West is any different. That we definitely had that too. I think, I hope that we're beyond that. Not everywhere. But
we both know people who are out to close friends and are not out to their family,
right?
Because they know that it would, and as distancing as that already has to be within a family, they at least have some contact with family. If the minute they came out, they know that would be absolute, the walls would come down.
Things that I was thinking about, how reserved the emotion was. Like in Great Indian Kitchen, we kind of had these looks by our main female character of like, what you expect me to do, what? And just like it just kept building and building and building until there was a little like this explosion, right? And here I kept waiting. What was so notable to me is that the emotional moment, the emotional catharsis, was not really between the husband and wife.
There is one a little bit later, but
yes, but I'm just saying, like, Mammootty crying and really, that moment is with his father, because his father, I don't know if you were surprised. I was expecting the star witness in the trial to be I'm blanking on the character's name, but played by Sudi Kolikode.
Tankan. No, actually, it was quite funny because I actually guessed it was the father. I was sitting there saying to Rob, "Oh my God, it's his father. It's his father." Because you have the conversation with Omana and the father, and Omana, where he says to her, can't you change your mind? And she
Right.
says about how she came into the house and he was more of a father to her than her own father.
Yeah.
Then it switches to the scene. Um, it's some of the political stuff, and
Right.
the phone, Mathews' phone rings, and he walks outside, and he's told that they're reopening evidence because the other side has a new witness, and Mammootty drops his phone.
Yes. Yes.
I was just like, and for his father to do that, like, what an enormous step.
Enormous. Enormous. Yeah.
Absolutely enormous. And this is a man who is almost silent through the whole film.
Oh my gosh, yes. And you just feel that first family dinner that we see, and you can see the tension. You can see father and son don't speak.
Yeah.
They don't look at each other.
Yep.
And you can see the love that Jyothika's Omana character has for her father-in-law. But yeah, he just has this disapproving air, the father does, through the whole time. And it's so completely, so the two moments, him testifying and saying, yes, I knew from when he was a kid that he was this way.
Yeah.
To then having this moment with Mammootty on the porch, and the moment he touches his shoulder, Mammootty completely breaks down and grabs that hand, like, please don't move that hand. Oh my God, I was losing. I mean, just like, it wasn't even like a hug. Just the fact that his father touched his shoulder was enough to make Mammootty, who was also already teared up, but to completely just like the kind of whining, crying that he was like, oh my God.
He just absolutely broke down. Just absolutely broke down. I have seen the film 3 times now, and I don't think I'm ever going to recover from that scene.
I mean, that's the scene that I had to rewind to watch again. Yeah. I'm like, wow. Right? Because, and it has that much more impact because there has not been shouting, there has not been fighting, there has been all of this restrained, repressed emotion in every other scene. And we finally see Mammootty just, essentially say, couldn't you have loved me? Couldn't you have accepted me? And then get that acceptance. And oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. I also want to mention another scene. Like, I have so many little scenes written down, but I want to mention another one that some people found, they considered Omana's behavior a little dismissive towards her husband. And it's when they're in court and she's asked to come into the docket.
Right.
And she's reminded she can't have her bag there. And she hands it to Matthew and he stands there holding it. And I was actually surprised by that people had viewed it that way. I don't know about you, but it's like, I've been married to my husband for 27 years. And there are moments where I just look at him and I have to go do something and give him my bag and he stands there holding it.
That's the impression that I got of like whatever it is about them divorcing, they just still do have this level of familiarity with each other and decades of being together. And yes, you would just, and all, I mean, but also I think the director is purposely showing us Mammootty holding a woman's handbag. I mean, there's, you know what I mean? I mean, he's showing us that image as well. I mean, he could have just put it down, whatever. No, he's framed the shot not to just show us Jyothika, but always show both of them through that testimony. And so we're always seeing, and also we're seeing that Mammootty is not, like you can imagine another courtroom scene where he would bluster, where he would harumph, where he would, no, he's just sitting there and taking it. He's just taking it, because he just knows I have made this woman be in pain for all of this time. And he's just, like,
I also find him very bewildered. Like, he's lived this way for so long, he can't even cope with what's happening around him. It's like everything is swirling around him and he just stands there and just like frozen. He can't, as you said, everything's been tamped down so hard that it's suddenly exploding out and it's like, I don't know what to do here.
And it can't be private because he's in the middle of the election.
Yeah.
Wasn't it so interesting that they decided, instead of him offering to resign and that being okay, and this happened to him too because of this, no, the party, I loved it. It wasn't the local party. It was
Yeah.
the upper echelons are like, no, this is actually good to show that we're liberal on these issues. So
Yeah.
keep in mind.
Well, and there is some commentary, I think, here, very subtle on the nature of politics, because you see at one point the opposition out there, and they're just gleefully taking this issue, and they go back to the man that Matthew had talked to about his daughter earlier on in the film, and he's like, he shuts them down. It's like, so I think there are, on some level, people have said it's very utopian, it's very unrealistic. I think there are some elements of that, but I think for me, what Jeo Baby is trying to show here is this is not perfect. This world isn't perfect. People still, the other party drags out the arguments about family values and think of the children.
Right. Yeah.
And this is a world where this negativity still exists, but this is also a world where acceptance exists.
Right. I mean, another like tiny little scene of Mammootty's love, Duncan has a driving school, right? And so we see him being shunned by people and getting dirty looks when some of the news is out. But then he's having dinner with a friend and he says, I'm getting so much business, I can't even tell you, because all these families know that their daughters are safe with me, so I can't even handle it all.
And another scene that I want to sort of draw attention to at the end, because Tongan has a nephew, and because this news comes out, his relationship with his nephew becomes a little bit fraught, because the nephew's ended up the butt of a lot of teasing. And he's already under stress because his mother has remarried and he doesn't like the new husband, and he's living with Tongan. And he just doesn't know what to do with. But there's another scene late in the film where the two of them are pasting posters.
Yeah.
What they do on the side of their house is written a Malayalam word that is a slur for someone who is gay.
Oh, I didn't even catch that.
And Tonkan takes the poster and puts it on top of it.
Oh.
And it's like, I'm sorry. It's so many tiny little details that are so wonderful. The fact that Matthew goes to talk to his daughter Femi about all of this, and she just looks at him and says, Dad, don't lie to me. I know what's going on here. Don't lie.
Yeah.
She's very accepting too.
Right. But she's just like, I'm just sad, but like Mom's already talked to me about this. I urged her to do it. Yeah.
I love that fact.
And I loved at the end, she's video calling them. We don't know why they're sitting there at that table. And she's like, Mom, I told you to wear the gray. And obviously she's come more than fine with her mother dating again. I love that sort of epilogue. We have that. The only time that we see Mammootty and Tongan share the same frame is they can't even look at each other. He hands them the political flyer.
It's very awkward.
Right? And so we don't get any emotional scene of, okay, they're moving in together or they hug, or there's no physical contact at all, except for them handing this flyer. I don't even know that their hands brushed or anything. But we see him waiting in the car, and then as they're we're not even sure if we see two people in the car as it drives, but then there's a rainbow.
I loved it. Like it's like Jeo Baby saying, "What if the world were like this?"
Yeah.
What if like this? Again, like a lot of the little things, like on the day when everybody's going to vote, and the camera pans on the lineup, and you see Jyothika's character in one lineup,
right?
You see Tongan has voted and he's coming out, and the father in the other line, and they just sort of, they make eye contact briefly, just briefly. Now a lot of people have said, oh, we needed more scenes, intimate scenes with Matthew and Tongan. I don't think we do, because I don't think that's really the point here. That's another film. I think a lot of it is, and I think Jeo Baby has said this, he's looking at how family values and society values have impact on everyone. And so we see the daughter, who is, as a young person, very accepting. I mean, the
Right.
whole thing with the school event
Yeah.
with the love yourself, and that's very much a youthful thing, but contrasted with Tanga's nephew, who's having a really hard time with it.
Yeah.
Um, and the whole thing with Omena's father not being accepting, Omena's brother trying to. I mean, Omena's brother is trying to talk her out of doing this.
Right. I mean, he does come around and he
Yeah,
does say, I need to stand with my sister. I didn't stand with her when she needed me before.
yeah,
I also want to mention that this is not the first time that Geo Baby has done a film about this topic,
yeah,
because when he was getting his master's, he was actually expelled from his college for doing the short film Secret Minds. And not only that, but the producer of the short film and the actors in the film, they were all expelled from their
yeah,
college because they had filmed on campus without permission. Oh, I mean, he's in a film program. Okay. Like, I mean, but it did play at some film festivals. But I'm making the point that, this is not something that Geo Baby is like, okay, now it's 2024. 2023.
yeah.
I'm going to make this film. He did it back in his school days. So again, I continue to admire him and his work. I mean, it's beautiful films that he makes, but also they're about something, and they push the audience to really think about these issues. And as you say, but have the end of the film and say, wow, what if it could be like this?
Yeah,
What if
yeah,
a man like this could win an amazing victory
yeah.
in his election and it didn't matter?
And,
And
we do have sort of social message films involving trans and LGBTQ figures. Like we had Nyan Merikuti in 2018, which had Jayasuriya as a transgender woman. But
Mhm.
it was very much about the fight, and it was much more dramatic and much
Right,
more melodramatic.
right,
Sort of the fight to achieve something. I mean, which is valid too, because people do have these fights.
right.
But I love the
But
fact,
here
I
you
do
have
love
this,
the fact
you just have
that,
this weight of these decades of pain,
yeah,
right? Like, can we just move beyond these decades of pain that these people are going through?
I wanted to talk about one more thing in terms of representation, because again, one of the things has come up. This is Mammootty playing a cis actor playing
Right, that's
a
true.
homosexual character, and we've talked about this a lot in the West about how you have to have better representation of gay people playing gay people and trans people playing trans people, which is absolutely fair. I read a tweet and it was just so impeccably good. Ronak Mangotal on Twitter thought on LGBTQ characters being played by straight actors. LGBTQ characters should only be played by actors from the LGBT community. This is an opinion voiced by members within and outside of the queer community, and I get the intent, the emotion behind this. The need for representation is extremely important, but in today's world where awareness is still a scarce resource, what would you choose? A, representation and authenticity, or B, reach and awareness? It's one thing for Mamaka, a 72-year-old superstar who's a household name for an entire populace, to even take up such a character, considering what his peers are doing, and then to play it with such beauty, grace, restraint, and vulnerability, turning the character into a broken man living within a broken shell, within a broken shell, within a broken shell, like a fragile Matryoshka doll, until the pressure breaks those cracks wide open. Maybe films don't immediately change society, but they spark conversation. And I can't imagine a better way to plant the seed of empathy that will bear the fruit of dialogue and someday progress. Like,
Uh, that is
respect,
perfectly said. Totally.
respect for that.
Yeah,
Because, yes, we do want to see more representation.
absolutely. But
And, but Mammootty is breaking down a wall for people.
right, he's giving. I mean, I can imagine certain people who might normally not go to a film like with that subject, seeing it because it's Mammootty, and they can just say, "Well, I'm a lifelong fan of Mammootty. Of course, I'm going to support any work that he does." And he's opening hearts, he's opening minds,
Yeah.
and so in a perfect world, yes, we would have better representation, but we're not there yet.
Yeah.
I mean, you can say the same in Hollywood too. So, we don't have a perfect world there either.
And it was an argument came out with Nyan Marikuti because you had, Jayasuriya, who's a straight actor. And the argument becomes in a very small industry where you need a bankable star.
Right. Yeah.
Do you represent? Do you raise awareness? So
right.
I'm hoping these are the kinds of things that will open the door, that will allow other, and like if Mammootty can pull strings and have a trans woman acting in a film, let's see him do more of that, and let's see other people do it as well.
Right. Yeah, and I did notice one of the production companies of the film was also Wayfarer Films, and his son Dolker's production company. So
they were the distributor for the film.
Yeah. So I mean, I'm hoping that people will see the success of this film, and then that will lead to more. That will lead to more of these stories that need to be told and need to be watched, and we need to, the audience can learn from them and understand. I mean, oh my gosh, Mammootty's pain and this Omena's pain, right? Like all of that pain.
And I think it's like I get a little annoyed with all the box office numbers and how that becomes the measure of success. And it's true that this film isn't in the top 10 earners of this year.
No.
It's not far off, though. I think the last total I saw was 14.5 crore, which I think Garudon had something like 16, and that bumped it into the top 10. A lot of the top 10s are the big films.
Yeah.
I still think that's absolutely respectable box office numbers.
Absolutely.
For a film like this that actually didn't go into a lot of international markets. And the critical acclaim, of course, which matters more for me. The critical acclaim has been off the charts with good reason.
Right.
Please watch this film.
Absolutely. I mean, I come back to, that's the one wonderful thing about streaming, is that a film like this can reach international audiences. All right, we've just been singing all the praises. If I'm going to make some quibbles, the comments that some people have said about it being so slow, like, yes, I mean, it is they're going towards the quietness, toward the dignity of his character, toward the repression. Okay, but when you see a Mammootty film, you do sometimes want to see some fireworks. And I'm not saying I want to go, completely into melodrama or whatever, but I don't know. Like, you're left wanting more. Like, maybe there could have been a quiet reunion with his lover. Maybe there could have been, I don't know. I mean, Omena just also seemed just so, there was no fireworks. It was all just, I'm doing this, right? Like, just determination, I guess, would be the word that I would use. Like, I'm at the end of my rope. I'm doing this. And she also just had seemed to reach a point in her marriage where she obviously had some sort of successful writing or some kind of career that she was doing from home.
She wrote a romantic action drama novel. Oh my God. She's putting into writing what she doesn't have in her life.
God, I didn't connect that. Oh my God.
See, and I'm actually curious because one of the advantages I had sitting in a theater is those silences are so heavy.
Yeah.
And I don't, because I can't judge, because I've seen it both, but like, I sat there in the cinema with a lump in my stomach and a lump in my chest just because it was so oppressive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good word.
For me, I think the quibbles, fine. I mean, that's how you view the film. I think that's another film. I quite honestly do.
Well, I'm just saying I can understand why some people are saying that, but I still think it's a beautiful film, and I can't wait to see what Geo Baby is going to give us next. Right? Like, great ending kitchen. I mean, what else is this man going to give us? Right? And I feel like he only even grows more and more Because you think about Great Indian Kitchen, it essentially had one set, right? This tiny house. I guess there was one dance scene when she gains her freedom at the end, but otherwise, so you think about now Geo Baby, who had worked with such a limited budget and still made such an impact, and now he's getting a little bigger budget, and he's getting to work with Mammootty and Jyothika, and like, what could come next? I can't even imagine, and I'm going to be on the edge of my seat waiting to see what he's going to do. As it's just amazing, and obviously more and more scripts, because he didn't write this script, more and more interesting scripts are going to come to him because they know this is the guy that can get them made and make an impact with a really interesting script that other people wouldn't touch with a 10-foot pole.
Yep. I think the only other filmmaker I can think of who deals with issues in this way is Dr. Biju, who really does film festival kind of films. Everything is an issue for Dr. Biju. And most of his films are the same way, a lot of restraint, a lot of subtlety, which puts people off. Again, fair.
Yeah. I mean, I love how, there's the clues are there, just the disapproval of other people. Everything is a subtle thing. It's just, it's so well done. It's so nuanced.
Yeah. Oh, and I should note too that as far back as 2 years ago, there have been rumors about Mammootty playing a gay character in a film. And the rumors started with Puru, which obviously wasn't a gay character. That's when the rumors swirled. And then the rumors came up again with this film. And everybody said, look, you guys said that for Puru, and it had nothing to do with that. So I think the team did a really good job of keeping it mostly under wraps. There have been some complaints that people would have liked to go in without knowing at all. And that I can understand.
Okay.
But again, we were all guessing, because nothing was given away. And then the film played at the International Film Festival of India in November, just around the time it opened in theaters. And they had a catalog description that laid out the whole plot. Somebody posted on Reddit. We all said, that's got to be somebody making it up. And then I went to look at the IFFI catalog, and nope, there it was. That was like the same week the film opened.
Yeah.
So I think they kept it. But again, there have been these rumors for about 2 years now, and it happened. And it's like,
anyway, Catherine, I'm so glad you could join me for this discussion of this amazing film. Definitely, please, if you haven't seen it, you've gotten through this whole discussion. If we haven't convinced you already, you need to seek it out in the US on Amazon Prime Video. It's just a movie not to be missed, and an amazing, yet another amazing performance by Mammootty, and can I say also amazing performance by Jyothika. It's really great to see her in a meaty role like this as well. I enjoy seeing her on screen very much, and so I was very pleased that she was also involved with this film. All right, you can find Katherine on her podcast, Polandine Patti. You have it on YouTube now as well, right? As well as
there will be some new episodes coming. I was a little behind in getting things together because I took on a bit of work that took up all my time.
Well, plus it's been the holidays in the US and Canada, and so we'll be looking forward to future episodes of your podcast with Harsha, and I hope you will definitely come back again on my channel to talk again. You're such a font of knowledge about Malayalam cinema. I really enjoyed these conversations. All right, and you know where to find me. Yes, I'm still on X nominally, Pardesi YT, and I'm also on Threads, Blue Sky, and Instagram at Pardesi Reviews. All right, thanks, Katherine.